Hi, I'm Howard Nemo of We Are Change Connecticut and Truth Talk News on truthbroadcastnetwork.com. Still reeling from this horror that we've been subjected to here in Connecticut. Governor Daniel Malloy was just interviewed this Sunday morning by Candy Crowley. She calls herself Crowley, but she's a descendant of Aleister Crowley. And they were using the same speech, they're reading from the same playbook. Daniel Malloy mentioning that assault rifles are not meant for hunting. Again, mind controlling the people. Back in the 90s when this whole thing started with the assault weapons ban, that's what they are saying. These weapons aren't meant for hunting. Well, just for those that are unaware, those that might be uninformed, the Second Amendment is not for hunting. Okay? The Second Amendment is a last resort against tyranny in government. That is the real reason for it. So we should be able to have any weapon, arms, any type of arms. Oh, you can't have this, you can't have that. Well, why? Because in the event that the tyranny gets too hot, the people can react against it and take back our government violently if necessary. And it's in the Constitution. And when the late Charlton Heston raised his hand and said, "From my dead cold hand," at that time, I was a mind-controlled communist minion. Not realizing I was a communist, I thought I was for the working class people, the people that I belonged to. And I felt I felt very bad my whole life for people that were unfortunate. I had a very fortunate upbringing. I had good things in my life, and I still, to this day, am blessed by the graces of God and the graces of the fact that I was born into a family that loved me, took care of me, raised me, educated me, but they were also unaware. So after 40 years of my life, I started to notice and realize what is really going on in this world. But back in those days, back at that time, I didn't own a gun. I didn't want to own a gun. I thought guns were dangerous. I thought guns were the problem, because that's what I was taught. If you teach somebody to hate racists, they become racist. To hate blacks, Jews, Christians, Muslims, you're brainwashing them to hate. If you tell them that guns cause all these problems and all of that, then you're programming them to that. Now, I'm sure that people in the Democratic Party, even at the highest levels, really believe that this is a good point. I did. But this morning I heard Daniel Malloy, and I'm going to see if I could try to get the feed, say that this is not for hunting. No, that was the mantra back in the 90s. That was the mantra. It is the mantra of this anti-gun United Nations agenda, basically in the United States, created by the Rockefellers, who are slowly bringing us into this disgusting state of affairs we call America. This decrease in our morality, what we hold dear is being manipulated by the media, and of course by the over prescriptions of drugs that affect the mind. This is all by design. When this all started, Milltown was the first drug that they gave to women who had like social anxiety, or they were just a little too burdened, so they gave them this. Then Valium. And over the past 50, 60 years now, actually, 60 years, the list of psychotropic drugs is an arm's length. This is the reason why we are where we are in this country. We have a drugged up, dumbed down by a education system, the Department of Education, the government getting into all of our business. We are turning into a communist country slowly but surely. Yeah, maybe it'll take it's 60 years now, but if things continue, maybe it'll take another 40 years to bring in the New World Order to their expectations. Because again, it has to be done covertly. The people have to willingly give up their rights. They have to willingly be wanting to. Like Henry Kissinger said at the Bilderberg meeting in Avion, France in 1992, actually 91, I believe, that if the riots that occurred in the King riots, when the policemen were beating Rodney King, who, by the way, recently died of a drowning in his pool on drugs. So they went wild with the verdict that the police officers were exonerated and burned their cities, their own, where they live, like they knew that they would, like they did in the Watts riots and Harlem when Martin Luther King was murdered. The problem with America is we don't look to the past enough to see where we're going, to see the correlations with the events of the last 60 years. Slowly chipping away at our liberties, slowly chipping away at our republic, calling us a democracy as we move farther and farther into socialism and then eventually totalitarian, full-blown, hardcore communism, where you'll go work for the corporation, you'll get that job all right, but you can't call in sick, you can't quit, you can't commit suicide and jump out the windows of the Apple plant because the nets will catch you. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're moving down the road to tyranny so quickly, but every step of the way, it's obvious. It's obvious. Now, there are many government programs, MKUltra, which supposedly ended in the year 1973, but it just went black and underground. I've covered that on air with people from the CIA, former CIA agent Barbara Hartwell. This hasn't changed, just like COINTELPRO hasn't ended, and that they're still doing this. What do you think the FBI's all of a sudden just decided to stop investigating and putting false information out so that they can keep the people in the dark? The world government that they're planning to put together, these oligarchs through the United Nations, moving closer and closer to a world body that will secure everything, the Pope calling for a new world order. I mean, this is an obvious conspiracy, a communist conspiracy. And they say, well, communism died in the fall of the Berlin Wall. No, it did not die. In fact, the bankers just got more control. Now we have Lord Rothschild only has 3 more gems for his crown in the Middle East. And that's why we're there. That's why we were in Afghanistan, why we were in Iraq. Not for freedom and liberty, but for poppy and oil. That's the truth. And lithium. And to set up central banks. As they did the minute Gaddafi fell, the first thing they did was steal his gold, go in there to Libya, and set up a central bank. Same thing in Egypt. And now Syria is going to be next. We've got troops, 400 troops by the Syrian border, ready to go in Turkey. U.S. troops. Again, we, the people, must be the police force of the world because of the United Nations. Because the United Nations says that the UN advisors, peace advisors, humanitarian assistance, humanitarian aid givers can go into any country, including ours. That would be a bit of a problem with about 100 million Americans. I think more Americans are awake than even the government gives credit to. I think that many are listening to broadcasts like truthbroadcastnetwork.com and Truth Talk News, We Are Change Connecticut, and the thousands of others, because I say the same thing to everyone. You know this information. You know the truth. Share the truth. Don't be afraid to speak. Many are afraid to speak. You know, there's an old saying, I'd rather live one day as a lion than 100 years as a lamb. And there's something to be said for that. Our society is so Hegelian, dialectic oriented by these oligarchs to control our every thought, to get us to embrace the feelings and emotions that they wish us to infiltrate the movie industry and the all the multimedia facets that we have, books, magazines, television, to give us a frame of reference that they wish us to take. And it only became apparent to me when I realized how much our government is trying to take away from us, how the government is now becoming the lawmakers, not the people. Sure, people pass the laws, puppets, paid off lobbyists that become candidates that go in and out of our government. Monsanto having the head of top lawyer and chief lobbyist of Monsanto, Michael R. Taylor, running the FDA. John P. Holdren as the science czar. I mean, we are down the road to tyranny. I see this coming. And the events that we just had with these children, these beautiful little children, I just can't, I don't even know how to convey the horror that we have here with this case, this terrible, terrible tragedy. Now, I was talking again, Daniel Malloy was on, and talking about the guns, and again on CNN, and everybody has to wake up, and it's just immediately the gun grabbing communists who realize you cannot have a good revolution to bring in communism in our country unless the people embrace it. And then if there's any that don't want to, they don't have the means to defend themselves. The breakdown in society by these quote unquote think tankers who are supposedly thinking about ways to help society, giving women's lib, the Rockefellers backing the entire women's lib movement, funding Ms. Magazine, Gloria Steinem, furthered the decline of marriage in this country. It led to divorce, broken families, children that have to see their parents every other week or on the weekends, the other parent, breaking up the family unit. Taking away the child's desire to be part of the unit, alienating him through video games and other things that they get lost in these worlds. And some of them really are disturbed by this and lash out. And then they get put on drugs because they're really just upset because their parents broke up and they have feelings and problems that can be worked out. But society says, no, you have a right to your independence and your liberty and your freedom, except when your liberty and your freedom and your rights get in the way of the oligarchs' agenda for the New World Order. Then you don't have a right. You can't yell at an official, a government official, if you're on a government property, or you will go to jail. You can be incarcerated as a citizen of this country without trial, without any, you can just disappear, assassinated. This is America. Now, Daniel Malloy did mention something, that we are a violent society. America is a violent country. And he hit it right on the head. And it's worldwide violence. And the reason why we're hated is because we're the imperialist power arm, the muscle of this Anglo-American New World Order. Now, I cried a lot yesterday. On Friday, I was angry with the broadcasts. Yesterday's broadcast brought my heart to tears, and it's heartbreaking. But now we know who these little angels are. Little Charlotte Bacon, who was 6, and Daniel Barden, who was 7, Rachel Davino, 29, a teacher, Olivia Engel, 6, Josephine Gay, 7, Anna M. Marquez Green, 6, Dylan Hockley, 6. Dawn Hochsprung, the principal, 47. Madeline Sue, 6. Catherine Hubbard, 6. Chase Kowalski, 7. Jesse Lewis, 6. James Mattioli, 6. Grace McDonald, 7. Emily Parker, 6. Jack Pinto, 6. Noah Posner, 6. Carolyn Praviti, 6. Jessica Rakos, 6. Aviel Richmond, 6. Lauren Rousseau, 30. Mary Sherlock, 56. Victoria Soto, 27. The teacher that guarded her children and tried to fight against this guy while she was being shot. She saved children's lives as much as she could. Benjamin Wheeler, 6. And Allison Wyatt, 6. I'm just absolutely stunned by the media's jumping on this. I mean, they use these examples to go after the guns and not talk about the psychotropic drugs. So I'm just going to beat this to death, I mean, for the rest of my life, that these psychotropic drugs are a good part of the reason why our society is crumbling. You have 25% of children on some sort of a psychotropic drug, 1 out of 4 children. You have 1 out of 2 adults that are on some sort of a psychotropic drug. This is a huge problem. There are more people on psychotropic drugs than own guns in this country. Medical mafia is very powerful, and it's a very big key component of the New World Order. A huge component. Just look at the way the FDA fights anything that doesn't have to do with Big Pharma's medical mafia when they want to have alternative treatments. Holistic care is not covered by insurance. Alternative treatments are not covered by insurance. I said it the other day, my wife doesn't take mammograms. She gets thermal scans. Insurance covers it 100% for a mammogram, but you must pay $250 if you want a thermal scan, which gives the same result. Doesn't give you deadly radiation that bioaccumulates over time and causes cancer. Why is the cancer rates in Connecticut the highest in the nation? Because they give everybody mammograms. Free. You can go. If you can't afford it, go. Well, they come into communities with mammogram trucks. Right here in Torrington, right down the road from me is the Charlotte Hungerford Hospital Cancer Center. I could walk there. And they always have these seminars so that the people can have women's care and make sure that they get their mammograms. Because mammograms save lives. It still cannot, I still cannot give enough emphasis on how the medical mafia has taken a grasp on this situation. How many companies and even the compounding pharmacy that put out the steroids that were for people that had back problems and stuff, and they were giving meningitis to people across the country, some 100 plus cases. Excuse me. Well, they're wrecking that compound pharmacy is getting wrecked. Again, killing competition. You see, that's what they do. Big business, these big businesses kill the competition of the smaller companies over many ways by, in this case, sabotage. This is corporate sabotage, corporate what do you call it? Spying, corporate spying, or corporate. They operate like they have. For example, Monsanto has a full COINTELPRO operation that gives all this positive information. All they do is just dispute everybody. That's their job, is to lie, to try to cover their lies, to cover the truth about how evil Monsanto is, trying to take over our food supply and make sure that we all get GMO food and that they own all the seeds of all the farmers that plant. I guess I'm on a rant again. But these children are the focus of today's discussion. And the guns. Here's what the gun rights people are saying. This is the globalist scum, Pierce Morgan, probably is one of the Morgans. Now, again, the Morgans were just backed by the Rockefellers. Now, this Brit is a twit, and he's the one that I think I hate the most. But let's listen to him have what he has to say. This globalist scum.
The proof of the pudding
you don't
is that in every
see
other
mass
industrialized country in the
at
world,
gun shows
other than the United
or shooting
States,
ranges.
they have reasonable gun control laws, and they have 100 people a year, not 9,000 or 10,000 a year killed by guns.
Guys, listen,
Japan,
but it was lower before gun control
Japan
there.
adopted strong gun control
and
laws.
has almost zero crime.
And the homicide rate
but the point
plummeted.
is, the gun control didn't change it.
In Scotland, in Dunblane, in 1996, there was a very similar school shooting.
Right.
Just an awful situation. 16 young children killed exactly as they were today.
You know what?
Here.
The two of the
and
four...
they, as a result of this, they brought in a handgun ban. 162,000 handguns were handed in. Right? It is time for an amnesty.
Murder rates went up.
There was an amnesty in Australia as well.
Murder rates went up.
There are about 35 murders a year in Britain.
But it was
35.
lower for another
reason.
reason.
There are nearly 12,000 murders a year from guns in this country.
The point is,
when are you guys going to focus on that? And stop telling me the answer is more guns. No, it is not the answer.
Look, listen.
Let's
focus
on than it was after the ban. It was higher than it was before the ban.
So you want more guns, not less?
I'm saying
300 million guns in America isn't enough for you.
When you ban guns,
how many more kids have to die before you guys say we want less guns, not more?
I'm upset about this. He asked me a question.
I want to tell you
something.
something.
Let him answer the question.
I'm upset because I worry that the gun control laws that you're pushing have killed people.
Oh,
that
what
when
a
you
lot of nonsense.
look, you have to explain.
Nonsense.
You
An
have
average of 35 killings from guns in Britain a year.
It is not nonsense.
Banned handguns.
But it was lower
no ban
before
on these
they
guns.
had the gun control
12,000
laws.
people a year die.
Just hours after the Connecticut shooting, a promise from President Obama to tackle gun violence.
And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this, regardless of the politics.
But what exactly does he mean by meaningful action? Critics of the president's record on the issue are pressing for specific proposals. New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg said, calling for meaningful action is not enough. We need immediate action. We have heard all the rhetoric before. What we